You know what's cool? Shows from my childhood. You know what sucks? Twitter drama. In February of last year, long-running PBS show Arthur ended with a 16-year, 25-season run. So of course the clickbait crowd decided to jump on that, specifically causing a big stink with how each character was depicted post-time skip. A lot of strong opinions flooding social media talking about why Arthur looks like a YouTube reviewer and how DW became a cop. This is a very special type of grating to my brain because if you even watched the episode, you would know that it was very explicit about the ending being a what-if scenario, as canon as any of Arthur's daydream fantasies. Like, if you didn't like this ending, just take any of the other what-if scenarios and accept those as your canon finale if it makes you feel any better. I personally like the idea of Arthur's kids running away because they find out they don't have a trendy Woogle to inherit from him. Similar to other long-running animated series The Simpsons, Arthur is set up in such a way that episodes can be aired not only out of order, but finales and finale-adjacent episodes can be snuck into the series whenever. Just in the episodes I grew up on, there were a decent amount that served as a spiritual finale of sorts. So, let's look at one of them. Arthur was the type of children's show that was genius in its simplicity, focusing on the title lead Arthur and his friendships with his classmates, family, and the greater Elwood City. Unlike something like Hey Arnold, where its majority-grounded world was undermined by how young you realize the cast is, Arthur's own cast of majority 8-year-olds feels like their age, having the mental maturity to handle certain issues while still lacking that sense of grown-uppedness that would prevent them from hugging their mom when threatened to get a booster shot by their sister. Even the episodes themselves were overseen by educators, researchers, and general experts in cognitive development to ensure the material educated children in such a way that highlighted core curriculum skills. This is programming that takes great care to perfect their writing to ensure their target audience feels seen. You think the Department of Education helped fund those YouTube Elsa Spider-Man videos? With a certain level of care placed in its production, it should be no surprise that episodes themselves had the same level of low-key depth to them. Sure, early episodes of Arthur were adaptations of their equally straightforward picture books, but as the series took off, episodes started to delve into deeper yet still universally relatable childhood problems for the modern age, circa 1997. Really digging into the psyche of children and getting to the root of the thoroughly disturbing shit that keeps them up at night. Like that one episode where DW gets mad that her grandpa's getting old, or the one where Arthur defends yet is ashamed of watching a show made for preschoolers, or the episodes where Buster went away and came back. Upon rewatching Buster's back after a good 20 plus years away from the series, part of me was a bit let down in terms of the quality not living up to my memory of it. How am I supposed to gush over childhood memories when I'm being subjective as f***? But when I went back and started rewatching some of my other favorite episodes, it was then that Buster's return episode started to be fully appreciated. See, not only do these episodes make direct reference to the ones preceding it, but it takes advantage of the fact that you, as the viewer, have formed a strong connection with this cast of characters. At this point, the series is officially exactly 100 episodes deep, and if you watched even a fraction of those episodes, you still get a solid feel of how lived in and established Elwood City has become in that time. Over the course of these 110-minute episodes, you see Arthur not only learn a variety of PBS-sanctioned life lessons, but you also witness the sheer amount of cast members he interacts with in that time. Between his friends, family, extended family, teachers, and other school staff, we begin to notice the slight differences in how Arthur presents himself with each of them. Particularly, we get a feel for how he interacts with the different friends in his life. Characters like Francine or Binky are a bit more hard-headed, so Arthur, while still friends with them, makes a point to be a bit more soft-spoken around them.
But you just won! I should have won by more!
Muffy is the type to carry on her own conversations while Arthur passively gets himself involved.
Why don't you just make them by yourself, like you did the last time?
I'm sorry you feel like I cheated you. Now may I please have the recipe?
Brain keeps his nickname on a pedestal and interacts with Arthur more as a means to validate his own intellect.
I can't talk to you. I must use all my available brain capacity plotting revenge!
They're all friends with Arthur in one way or another, but the power balance was never quite as equal as it was between Arthur and Buster. Buster is your quintessential children's show sidekick. He's a bit of a goofball, serves as a sounding board for Arthur, and is just an all-around pleasant kid who everyone enjoys being around. And yet for as boilerplate as that sounds, Buster is as important a foundation to the series as Arthur himself. Sure, he's a goof, but his more free-spirited approach to being a kid bounces so well off Arthur's more grounded, Doug-like personality, making for a stronger dynamic overall. In a lot of ways, Buster serves as Arthur's foil, their personalities standing out that much more when they're in scenes together. Eccentricities like Buster's fascination with aliens and obsession with jokes not only further establishes how Arthur is the straight man in comparison, but does so in a way that makes Arthur more ordinary without coming off as boring. A key factor to a lot of programming, especially from this time, was how everyman the main character was. And while Arthur reaches that certain level of audience surrogate status, he isn't a complete blank slate either. When I revisited the series, I assumed Arthur and Buster's dynamic was very clean cut, where Buster was more the screw-up and Arthur the one to bail him out of trouble. And while that's true to a point, it should be noted that Arthur screws up just as often, if not more, as the titular character.
Sorry about this, folks. Looks like Arthur's forgotten to use his brain again.
The relationship isn't simply built on Arthur cleaning after Buster's mess, but both being willing to clean up after each other. Their loyalty and honesty to each other being a major driving factor, even more so than their contrasting personalities. Like, look at them calling each other to meet up in the middle of the night. Look at them wearing slippers of the other one's face! Lads, we are reaching an unprecedented level of friendship seen not even in your most shonen of manga.
Oh, Goku! It is you! Oh, I missed you!
Which makes it all the more heartbreaking when Buster leaves. Two years into the show's run, Danny Brochu, the voice of Buster, requested some time away from the show to travel Australia for a year. Brochu, very adamant about wanting to travel, even went as far as suggesting Buster be recast and he leave the show outright.
In 1997, I decided that I was just going to take a year off and travel to Australia by myself. And the producers came up to me and said, so what do we do? And I was like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, you want to replace me, you can replace me. Like, at that point, I didn't care. For some reason, I was just like dead set on traveling. And I think it was like the 5th season or something. And I was like, you guys do what you have to do. I'm traveling to Australia for a year. And if you want to replace me, then that's fine.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about brash, 27-year-old, wanting to travel and giving up his... Anyway, it was a crazy decision.
But the folks behind PBS, being the absolute kings they are, valued Brochu's talents and were willing to accommodate his time off, writing him out of the show while he was away and bringing him back once he returned. So, what happens when Buster Baxter, such an integral part of Arthur the show and Arthur the character, is removed from the cast? Does the show lose its luster when a key element of the cast is removed? Well, yes and no. In the episodes following Buster's leaving, we see a larger focus on the supporting cast. Characters like Binky, who've already proven themselves as more than the simple bully archetype, are thrown even further into the spotlight as a friend to Arthur, and a low-key funny one at that.
How would you like to help me make more cookies?
Banana!
Bookish characters like Fern and Sue Ellen also get more screen time, giving some well-needed introvert representation. And we see another Francine and Brain episode, having previously co-starred in one of my favorite episodes where they just argue for the whole time until they shift their anger towards Arthur and Buster instead.
We're not mad at each other. We're mad at you guys.
In the time that Buster is gone, we're given a total of 17 new episodes, finishing out the second season, with Buster not returning until the start of season 3 in November that year. Episodes like Finders Keepers and How the Cookie Crumbles explore this Busterless Elwood City, all while still maintaining the overall feel that the show has spent the last 2 years establishing. Instead of being kneecapped by the loss, the creative team fully leans into it, with episodes throughout the second half of Season 2 shifting the spotlight to other characters, delving into the current group dynamic, or even just exploring what Arthur would do when left to his own devices. Buster leaving the show allowed the writers to explore the emotional process of an actual friend moving away, and I think that's a universal feeling that everyone's gone through. Maybe you start spending more time with other friends, or just find something else to do. Either way, the show must go on, and you adjust accordingly. The world didn't end, more episodes were made, and the show remained as Arthur-y as it had ever been. So, what happens when you bring Buster back? Buster's returning episode is broken up into 2 episodes, the first dealing with Arthur's anxiety surrounding Buster coming back, and the second dealing with Buster's own anxiety integrating himself back into his friend circle. And while the second is definitely the more memorable, like imagine being a kid in the 90s having no clue who Garfunkel is,
Mom! There's a singing moose in front of the house!
it's the first that I'd like to focus on. Initially excited that Buster's coming back, Arthur begins to worry that Buster's newfound worldliness will make Arthur's own life seem quaint by comparison. Of course that isn't the case, and Buster and Arthur restore their friendship, picking up as if no time passed. Even if you know the direction the episode goes in, the episode, and in particular its final scene, hits home because of how universal Arthur's predicament is. It's not just a kid problem, it's one adults go through as well, and if anything, FOMO and social media have only made this problem more prevalent. Regardless of age, you're still probably gonna run into that one person that traveled abroad and can't go 2 sentences without using it as a means to conversationally flex on you. Inversely, that fear of missing out you get while other people in your feed are out having fun is only magnified thanks to the immediacy of social media. Arthur's fear of Buster somehow changing so much that he'll be seen as too cool for the likes of Elwood City is not unfounded if grown-ass adults succumb to the same mindset years after the episode is aired. In your typical kids' TV show setup, the problem of the episode eventually gets resolved because the main concern can be boiled down to, what will my peers think? Uh-oh, I need glasses. Uh-oh, I sleep with a nightlight. Uh-oh, I watch a show meant for kids. Each one of these episodes focuses on a legitimate fear or insecurity a child would have, but is ultimately extinguished when considering the grander scope of things. As long as I have friends to validate my choices and help rationalize my way out of the bad choices, who cares what other people think? In this case though, Arthur's concern and insecurity doesn't just involve a peer, it's his friend. His best friend. He can't reject his peers in favor of his friends because in this case they are one and the same. He can't disregard Buster's opinion of him because to do so would result in them not being friends. What do you think, he's gonna get new slippers now? You can't just do that! Arthur's insecurities arise not because he is no longer friends with Buster, but because that time separated from him leaves too much room for the imagination to wander. Too many gaps to fill with hypotheticals, all of which only get worse the more he dwells upon them. It's not that he's thinking any lesser of Buster, it's that he's thinking so well of him that he fears he's gotten literally too good to hang out with him. And the series does an excellent job of building up that insecurity. A typical Arthur episode tends to at least jump between its cast of characters when it comes to building the foundation for the story, but in this case our sole focus is on Arthur. It almost feels like a bottle episode with how much time you spend solely with him, and that's definitely intentional. The more we spend with Arthur, the more in his head he and in turn we as the audience become until it reaches the point that we begin to buy into the possibility that Buster may not be interested in seeing him anymore. The episode even prolongs this moment by having Buster arrive late, our anticipation at its absolute capacity until he finally shows up.
How interesting can some old ruins be anyway?
Oh, it was really interesting. Hi.
Hi!
Immediately, Arthur begins unloading all this trivia on Buster in hopes that the faster he's able to get it out there, the more impressive he'll sound. Meanwhile, Buster is barely even able to finish a sentence.
There was one really exciting thing I wanted to do the whole time I was away.
To climb Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, located in the Himalayas, 8,846 meters tall.
Arthur continues speaking, trusting the lack of silence will maintain the relationship for just a bit longer before Buster inevitably shuts him down. When finally, Arthur runs out of things to say, and it's Buster's turn. The music slowly fades away, and he speaks.
I wanted to play checkers with you, just like old times.
I've met plenty of assholes and dickwads that have felt the need to lie to themselves to the point that they seriously believe that friendship is solely defined by your accomplishments. This laundry list of marketable talents as if friendships are this job you're supposed to tick every checkbox to achieve. When the simple fact is that friendships can't be defined. It's just this mutual feeling people get when they hang out where the other's mere presence genuinely makes you happy. There are no talents exchanged or ego validation, it's just you and them. That final scene where Buster says he doesn't care about all the travel factoids Arthur remembered and just wants to play checkers still speaks volumes to me because it's a lesson I think kids can honestly learn from even more as they grow up. Life will be difficult, and people will want to conform you into a certain box for the sake of networking, job applications, exchange goods, whatever. And you'll be told again and again that this corrupted form of friendship is in fact a good thing and the foundation to how our world works. But if you wish to form a connection with people, a genuine connection, then the practicality of a person's usefulness is no longer a factor. Friendships aren't based around these structured quid pro quos and bulleted lists of feats to prove your own worth. At the end of the day, what makes you a good friend, and in turn a good person, is just a feeling. The same feeling you get when you call a friend in the middle of the night to get some guilt off your chest. Or talk you out of a dare some older kids cornered you into doing. Or even when you're sitting in a room in silence, playing checkers.